In this video, we're going to learn how to get finer control over the X and Y axis of a chart. In this example, we can see that the chart is almost unreadable because we see almost no differentiation between each of these data points, and that is due to the scale of the Y axis. And we can change this very easily by double-clicking on the axis. That'll bring up the Format Axis pane from the right-hand side. And what we are particularly interested in doing is setting the minimum bound to a much higher number so that we can see the differentiation between these different data points. Let's try a value of 0.85 and hit enter. And as you can see, the minimum on the chart now takes on that value of 0.85. We could possibly even change it to about 0.87, and now the chart tells a much better story. Now the good news is that most of the time, Excel applies automatic settings to these axes. If we reset to the auto, as you can see, the automatic number it would have assigned would have been 0.86. But it's definitely worthwhile knowing how to change these away from the automatic setting in case it doesn't quite capture what you need. We can also change the units of each interval. The major intervals are 0.01. If we were to change that to something smaller like 0.05, as you can see, we now get additional points added to the axis. But once again, let's reset that back to auto. And we can't quite see the minor intervals. But if we move down to tick marks and choose minor type and perhaps choose the cross, now we can actually see that those intervals do in fact exist, and the distance between them is 0.002. But as we can see, being able to change the minimum and maximum bounds of a chart is very important since it can have such an impact on the readability of a chart. If we look down to our x-axis, you'll notice that it is representing each of the dates. Once again, by double-clicking, it'll open up the axis options, and while we don't have the exact same controls as the y-axis, we can see that Excel is interpreting this information based on the data, which in this case are dates. If, however, it was interpreting this incorrectly, we can manually set this to a date axis. Once Excel interprets this information as dates, we can again set the minimum and maximum bound by changing these options. We can change the units, choosing the actual number, as well as the type, either days, months, or years. So for example, if we change this to every 5 days and hit enter, now we can see we don't get all of the data points in between, which actually makes this chart slightly easier to read, since it's unlikely that a user needs to know every single data point, but rather more to pick up the trend of sales over this time period. If we wanted to see only certain elements of the date, for example, seeing the 2016 is quite unnecessary. So let's move down to the number settings, and under type, we can choose a setting that doesn't show the year. I'm going to go with the day followed by the abbreviated month. And that is looking significantly better. In our next example, we have a simple chart. We have revenue per category of product. Our y-axis is therefore numeric. I'm going to double click to edit this axis. And a very useful setting here is to reduce the number of significant digits. Under Format Axes, in the display units, I'm going to move to thousands. And as you can see, it now cuts down the number of zeros that are shown, but rather shows that they are in thousands. And as you can see, it's made the chart slightly less cluttered. If we select the text on the x-axis, we can go through a few additional settings, such as the position of the text. Firstly, we even have settings to show these categories in reverse order. And as you can see, it literally switches around the chart. We can also show these labels at the top or at the bottom, but personally I think at the bottom works best. If you find that they are too close to the chart, you can set the distance from the axis manually. So as you can see, that adds a bit of space, which can assist for readability. Finally, we also have some text-related options, such as fill and outline, many of the effects, as well as the positioning. But many of these actions can simply be taken from the Home tab. And one that is particularly useful when dealing with this number of categories might be to have the text at this type of angle. And we can set that from the alignment group, clicking on the orientation and choosing from any of the options that are available. So in summary, we've seen how to set the maximum and minimum bounds of a numeric y-axis. We've seen how to change some of the options in relation to an x-axis that deals with dates. We've also seen how to change the display units for numeric information like currencies, and we've seen some of the options that we can apply to regular text. So hopefully between all of these examples, you now know how to gain finer control over your axes. We'll see you in the next video.